And action! Hey, spaced engineers, welcome back. Today we're going to not talk about this, my shiny new creation, which I have yet to modify again. What we're going to talk about is welders and sensors and pistons. Specifically, like, okay, so you know the video when you first open up Space Engineers, I got that cool video playing in the background, and they get this part where there's this spinning projection of a ship and these welders that kind of wiggle around it and it welds it up, and I was like, dude, how the heck do they do that? And for the longest time I thought you needed like some kind of a script to do that, but then I got thinking about it and I'm like, no, there's absolutely a way to do it in vanilla, and if you do this you can make something quite useful. It's limited with regards to making large new ships, like from projection. It's excellent for like small grid and smaller ships. For larger ships you can make it so that it repairs battle damage pretty easy because it doesn't need to weld deep. Anyway, let's roll. Let's get talking about this thing because it's cool. Well, first thing you're gonna need is a piston, right? So let's just hold on. Let's do this in the air. Piston. And let's put on a conveyor doohickey because it needs to connect to something, right? Okay. So then piston. Alright, so we're going to make this just one piston big. One piston, one welder, one sensor. That's upside down. Okay. As I was saying, one sensor. And sweet. So what do we do next? Alright, well, let's configure the sensor, because that's pretty much all you're going to do. It's all about the sensor on this one. But first, what we're going to do is we're going to name everything, because I like things to be nice and named. And when I have fancy like rigs like this that I'm going to use a lot, I like to put like a AA prefix or an AB, B, or whatever. Something to put them at the top of the list, right under the groups. So this one's the piston, but it's going to a welder, so I'm going to call it welder underscore piston. And the sensor, I'm going to call it also a underscore welder underscore piston. Spell I can. And then the welder can just be a underscore welder. Yay! Okay, so the sensor. First we want to go into Power Info, select Show Sensor Field Range, and then back in the control panel, Show on HUD. Now, as you can see, it's put this box. This is the sensor range in this invisible box here. And what we want to do is make it so that it surrounds the welder, for the most part. Alright? So, we go to the bottom extent, can just go 0. The left extent, can you see in the background here how there's like a little shade that kind of passes over? You want that shade to be right at the edge. That's the wall of the field intersecting the welder, so you want that to be right at the edge. And then the right extension, same thing, you want it to be right at the edge. Right there. Doesn't need to be perfect, just close enough. Top extent, we want that to be just below the top of the welder, and I think, I can't see it, but I think it's about 3.2, if I remember. Back extent, we want that to be right about, again, equal with the end of the thing. And the front extent, you can just basically zero it out. Okay, 0.4. And that put it, oop, look at that. Our back extent is not quite far enough. So, build vision to the rescue! Okay, so as long as we're looking at that, we can just come down here, say back extent. I love build vision. It is the most handiest, awesomest thing. So, okay, let's say right extent. Why didn't I do this before? Greatest thing ever. Okay, that's actually right where we want it. Right about equal with, you know, this line right here. That's about where the collision box ends on the welder. You can actually clip the front of the welder in a little bit into whatever you're welding, which is good because it makes it weld a little more deeply. Yeah, so that's good. Now we could turn off show on HUD, and that goes away. Okay, go away thing. Go away thing. Ugh. Build Vision has one flaw, and only one. Okay, now back into the sensor. We want to set up our actions. Now what we want this thing to do is we want it to extend when there's nothing like being welded, and retract when it senses something. You know, when something appears in its, you know, zone. So these two little boxes down here are just that. The first box means this happens when something enters the zone, and the second box means this happens when something exits the zone. So let's go up to our piston here, and it just does it in order. So you right click and you say you want it to retract. So when something enters the zone, you want the piston to retract. This makes it so that it will basically start welding from the closest point to the, you know, center axis of the ship or whatever, and it'll draw the welder back outwards and then weld, you know, everything on its way past. And then that basically it'll make it so that it extends as you pass the ship over it, or it'll retract out of the way so that the ship can continue to pass under it. And when it leaves, like when it pulls the zone away from the ship, it'll reverse and go back to the ship. So it'll basically just sit there and like tickle the ship as it's passing by it, as it's being welded. And that's what you want to do. You don't want it to extend when the ship comes into range, because then it'll just push against the ship, and that's no good. Okay, so the second one is when it leaves, we want it to extend again. So this one is retract, and this one is extend. You can see on the little tag down there. Alright, so that's set up. We can just X out, and let's, I said that's, you know, we're doing everything in the welder, but I want to just make the piston go 1 meter per second, and I want to just go ahead and extend. Look at that, when it's not anchored to anything, it goes in two directions at once. Whee! Okay, now, oh, there's something we forgot to configure on the sensor. Way down here is where you tell it what you want it to trigger on. And since this is a welder, we want it to sense ships, right? Okay, so we want it to detect small ships and detect large ships. And that's basically, you know, if you want to put this thing on a ship and have it like weld a station, then tell it to just detect stations. But we don't care about that right now. So, okay, and subgrids, if you have subgrids on your ship that you want to weld up. By default, it will detect players, so we could test this by simply running into it. There it goes. And then when we leave, it comes back. When we go, it comes back, or it leaves again. Cool. It works. Alright, so now what we just need is like a whole bunch of these, right? Because we want to weld up a ship, right? Right? Okay, well, hey, look what we got over here. We got a bunch of them. Okay, so I put them spaced roughly apart. A, because there's no need to have them any closer. The area of a welder is a roughly 18 block area. It's about 3 this way, and then 3 this way, and then about 2 up from about this line on the welder up to 1 past. So that's why actually I have a 1 block gap. And on these, this dark area here is purely for instructional purposes. I painted it dark so that you can see, okay, that's about how tall of the ship we can fit in that space there, because it takes about 3 blocks to do the piston and the welder all at once. And these are all, if we go in here and we type in weld, all of our welders come up, or we could type in AA and all of our welders come up. They're all grouped together because I like it nice. And yeah, let's hide that, we don't need So yeah, this gives us the freedom to, if we want to, if something gets stuck, we want to turn off the sensors and then just retract all the pistons, we can do that. You know, if something broke, which, who knows? Space Engineers is finicky like that. Anyway, so, alright, so let's say we want to use this to make a ship, right? So in this case, you could do it two ways. You could either make a piston rig to hold a projector and just kind of draw the projection away as it gets printed. Or you could do what we're going to do in this video, and we're going to bring out my little Sidewinder tug, because it's like a Swiss Army knife. It does everything. It's awesome. And we're going to drop that there, and we're going to take a projector and we're going to put it, the plus, these little things. See, there's a plus, and then there's nothing, and then there's one with a vertical bar. Vertical bar's forward, plus goes on top. Alright, for those of you who don't know. So, we need to go in here. We don't really need to back away. Go to external view, zoop, and bring up our projector, and we will bring in the longboat. This is a nifty little, it's a good size for what we're doing here. And the longboat is actually a little thing that I made because I wanted something like the shuttle that they drop you in when you're starting out in space, but I wanted it bigger. I wanted something specifically to have a large cargo container. Yeah, because yeah, the small ones are of limited use. So I made this one and called it the longboat. Let me get it configured here. There we go, that's where we want it, but we want it forward by one. Blammo. Okay, so let's drop a block there, because we don't want to have to dismantle our ship just to disconnect the ship. And see, I have it a block apart, because then that will let me fit into here, and it won't interfere with the next item to be printed. And we will come over here. There is one problem. Like I said, these are not as good for doing ships that are large. Oop, okay, it's already started. But yep, see, they're working away there. They're doing the thing. And it's grabbed onto me, so let's pull out here. So there's an error that you may or may not have noticed, and this is actually with the build zone, or the sensor zone. So let's turn off our projector. And we're stuck. Okay, so let's go forward. Go forward! Trial and error. Yes, I only did a little bit of experimenting before I started recording. Yay me! Alright, so fortunately, like I said, this is instructive, isn't it? Welder. We can go over here to sensors, turn this back on, and then say top extent. Let's make this 3. Boom, there we go. Let's turn that projection back on. Okay. And see, it just, they pull themselves out of the way. Apparently the the sensor zone's still a little bit tight because it's pushing me around. If you move the sensor zone out a little bit more, it'll it won't push as aggressively against it. I'm stuck on that little thing there. But as you can see, now that those two are way down there, we gotta let them catch up. It is doing a really good job of zapping up this boat. We can speed it up now that we're past that turret. Second turret, and look, it's just zapping this whole thing together like crazy. Now again, how these are being really tight around the turrets, that can be remedied by extending the build zone laterally, like side to side, front to back, past the confines of the welder block, just by a smidge. and then it'll sense those and get out of the way a little bit sooner. And then let them do that. Now this, I'm trying to do a vanilla demonstration here, but you may or may not have noticed that there is a build and repair system in there flinging around its little yellow thing to finish welding up what the welders couldn't get. Yes, as you can see, the welders couldn't get to the stuff that's inside, so the build and repair system, which is not a vanilla feature that's right here, is just finishing the job, which it is very, very good at doing. I actually don't like using welders because they're annoying, and it doesn't matter how well prepared I am for, like, to build an entire ship. If I have all the materials somehow, whether it's with a welding wall or I make a big welder ship for welding up larger stuff, there's always something very deep within that didn't get welded all the way, and it's like jammed up my whole conveyor system or whatever. And so I have to go out, or I have to go inside, find what it is, you know, put it in the build planner, make the parts, and get it all going. But yeah, so this welder thing is, I figured this out purely so that I could still do things on, like, on servers that don't have the build and repair system, because I do play on servers that don't have every mod I've ever wanted, and that's half of the fun of the game, is dealing with challenges, you know, the challenge that is created by the non-ideal circumstance. Let's turn that off. There. Yeah, so there's that. But like I said, this type of thing is much better suited to repairing ships that are already damaged. So let's move this bad boy out of the way and see if we can't find a damaged ship. Okay, so there just happens to be a you know, one of my little fat scouts here that just got shot up. Wonder of wonders. How lucky. How convenient. How excellent. Okay. It wasn't really made for combat. Those guns are purely defensive. Alright, so I've loaded up a, you know, it's got the show buildable only, I guess. I've welded up the projection because there's actually some parts that I've blown completely off, excuse me, that were mysteriously blown completely off by vagrants and such. And this ship might actually be a little bit too big to fit through this hole, but we're going to see how well it works. Currently only exterior blocks have been blown to smithereens, so we're going to demonstrate how well this thing welds up the outside, because like I said, that's what it's best for, repairing damaged ships. Goes. We should probably shimmy over. This is a cool thing about this watch. You can shimmy sideways and they just kind of go, okay, he's moving sideways. Look at that. Isn't that cool? That's so cool. There we go. It's got a lot of backwards facing engines, so we gotta take it nice and easy. And in goes a messed up ship. Out comes a brand new ship. That is so nifty. I'm really glad I figured this out. This is kind of fun. Looks like it might have missed a couple of, yeah, missed a couple of spots. So, we just spin it around and do it again. I may or may not have just scratched the paint on the welder. Go through like perfectly straight, except for the guns like to grab onto the welders. So let's let go of my ship. Guns, welders. That's rude. Okay, so look at that. It totally fits, and I can move down. Oh look, I need to adjust down. Oh, I need to adjust up now because I'm too close to the bottom. Oh no, I was wrong. I was good before. There's so much cool stuff you can do with vanilla, as much as I wish there was fancier stuff. Look at that. Just drove right through. Well, that's that. It totally works, doesn't it? Well, everybody, I hope this video was as instructive as it was entertaining, or more of one than the other. Whatever. Whatever you guys want to do. Make it so. But anyway, that was fun. If you got any comments or questions or whatever, leave them in the comments section. I'll get to as many as I can. I've only got like 2 subscribers, so it'll be easy. Although, who knows, maybe non-subscribers will watch this video and then want to subscribe. Hint. Yes, subscribe if you haven't already, because this channel's awesome. Look at all this nifty stuff I teach you how to make. Even though this is only my 2nd video on tutorial stuff. Cool. Anywho, see you next time.